Oh, hi there, Renae. Thank you very much for joining me.
Hi, Lachlan. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. So, Renae Anderson leads a national team of financial advisors with nearly 2 decades of advising Australians on their retirement savings. She is an advocate for women in the financial advice industry and a finalist for the Women in Wealth Superannuation Professional of the Year Award. Renae is a certified financial planner and sits on the Financial Planning Education Council. Outside of work, she loves everything to do with tennis. She's a single mum to a teenage daughter, and she has two King Charles Cavaliers. I think that's why we get along so well, because we're both dog people, Renae. So welcome. Thank you very much again for sitting in with me to go through a few questions.
Thanks for having me. And, I do talk about the fact that I have a teenage daughter and two King Charles Cavaliers, and one of them gives me grey hair and the other is cute and fluffy, and I'll let you decide which one's which.
Very good. We've just got a cat, and they're slowly becoming friends, the cat and the dog. But no, it's I do enjoy my golden retriever. So I've prepared a few questions for you. So I just wanted the purpose of these recordings or these interviews is just to gain a little bit more advice, education about what makes a good leader, some shortcuts potentially of how to get where people want to go. So I'll kick it off with the first question. So how did you end up in financial advice?
So, with financial advice and my first role, I like to talk about it like how people talk about buying the worst house in the best street. I most certainly had the least enjoyable job, but in the best place. So I started with one of the big four accounting firms and I did things like the tax filing. So back in the days, this was 2 decades ago, it was a very manual job of taking out one piece of paper and putting back in an updated piece. It was very boring, but I looked around and I just saw opportunity. So, opportunity to learn, to develop, and it was quite a large company. I also made friends with a number of people, and one of them was a personal assistant to a partner. And so I simply asked her if she could teach me during lunch times how to use the systems. And I bought her lunch once a week. So we did that exchange. And one of the partners heard what I was doing and had a maternity leave role come up. So I was able to step into that role for 6 months, knowing, that I'd learnt the basics and then was learning on the job. Um, that person was one of the youngest partners at that accounting firm ever at the time. So he was a very progressive thinker. So to give me that opportunity was something out of the box, but he was, willing to give that a go, hearing what I was doing in my own time. And during that 6 months, I sat next to the financial planning team. So got to know them, and a role came up with them as I was finishing that 6 months secondment. So my first role in financial advice was more like a bit of personal assistant, a bit of implementation, a bit of para planning, and I worked for two principal owners who one of them ran the business, so I got to learn we went through the process of getting our own license, so how to run the business side of things. And the other one ran the client book, so I learnt strategy from him. Now, they both went on to retire eventually very successfully. But I think looking back, you know, how I got into it was creating my own luck. So asking people around me to teach me what they know, and people are really, willing to share their knowledge because everyone started somewhere, everyone was helped by somebody. So that worked really well for me, and that's how I got into it.
Sounds like a very well-rounded start as well, with a lot of experience with everything you started with. So that sounds great. Thanks for sharing. Next question is, what's one piece of advice that has shaped you?
Uh, Look, good link to that previous question, because this was actually a piece of advice that I received from one of those principal owners. And It might be easiest to do this one with your eyes closed. So if you picture for a second what I'm saying, the advice that he gave me was when you leave a job, picture your hand coming out of a bucket of water. Before long, it's like you were never there at all. Now, this seemed like strange advice at the time, especially coming from someone who had built up the business over 20 years, who I felt, just was the business because there were only the two principals. And I just saw him as being so important that what could this possibly mean? And then he retired and they sold the business. And I stayed on for that 1 year handover. And what I witnessed was things just keep moving. Business keeps going, things carry on. And why this is such, an important piece of advice and how I've taken this on through my career is that there is no ego in that. You really need to keep your ego in check because as successful as you may become and as successful as you may feel, end of the day, it's business and things do carry on, even when you're not there. So I feel that that helps keep perspective on what's important, which is not just your own role, but helping others who are coming up behind you as well.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much for that. Next question for you is a sliding doors moment. Have you had any of those that you may be able to share with me?
Yeah, so when you asked me this question, I did think of a very specific sliding doors moment very early on in my career, and it stands out because it's not often that you turn down a promotion. So I turned down a promotion a number of years ago, and I hadn't been in the role for very long when I was starting to receive extra responsibilities, which I see as fantastic, like learning on the job, what a great opportunity. Apparently, I did so well with those extra duties that they then wanted me to move into the role. And it was quite a step up and quite an opportunity. So when the role was positioned to me, I was really excited, first of all. And second of all, I asked about the salary. Um, Now, I was told that there would be no salary increase because I hadn't been there yet for 6 months, and so it would be revised then. I was quite surprised by this, and I'm not sure how I thought to do this, but I actually just said to them at the time, it's a great opportunity. Can I just have the night to think about it? The next day, I walked in and I turned it down. Big, bold move for someone in their early 20s, but it just didn't sit right with me. Like, I have a strong sense of fairness as a value, and it just kept playing over in my head. That's not fair. That's not fair. That's not fair. I know how much extra responsibility this is going to be. There should be extra salary with it. So big bold move. Wasn't sure if it was the right decision at the time. That's for sure. But what came of that was an opportunity to leave that role and enter a new role. And the new role involved some tax filing, but then a big opportunity that helped me move into financial planning. So my next role was actually my first role in financial planning, or led to it. So looking back now, it was a tough decision, but it was actually the right one. So that sliding doors moment for me was, here's an opportunity. Most people would take a promotion without thinking about it, but I wasn't being treated fairly. So I turned it down. And what actually happened after that was what set me onto the path of success that I have today in financial planning. So I don't regret it. I don't look back except to go, wow, that was a bold move, but turns out it was the right one.
It seems extremely courageous as well at that you mentioned obviously in your 20s too. So it's yeah, good on you for sticking to values there. That's amazing. So Renae, could you let us in on an insight on what's the most interesting thing about you that isn't on your resume?
I thought you were going to say that isn't on LinkedIn, and I was going to say, well, there's a lot on LinkedIn. There's not a lot that isn't on LinkedIn. But one thing that's not commonly known is that I've actually retired once before. So I retired from a sport. I retired from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu a couple of years ago. And so I took up this full contact submission grappling sport at 39 years old. I'm not recommending that necessarily as a good move, but that's something that that I have done, that I loved, and I just learned so much from martial arts and from being on the mat. So I trained BJJ for over 3 years, and it's I'm sure many people know, it's a very technical sport, and I just loved that side to it. There's so much to learn, and then, as soon as you feel like you're mastering things as a white belt, you go up to a blue belt, and then you've got to start all over again. And again, there's an element of checking your ego at the door, which I loved. But the main thing I liked is that you had to be really patient. You had to be patient with your learning, and nothing, comes easily and quickly with that type of sport. So it really trains your mind to put in the effort and the time, and then you see the progress, and that's awesome. But like I said, as soon as you feel like you start to get good at something, you actually have to start over again. So I think that teaches you some good discipline around patience and learning. We used to see a lot of white belts come and go very quickly because they didn't have that patience. And I would hear them say to the coach, what else should I be doing? Should I be running? Should I be, boxing? Should I be doing weights? And he would always say, all you need is time on the mat. The only way to get good at BJJ is to do BJJ. So I had to retire because I injured my ACL in a competition. So again, not necessarily the sport you want to take up at that age, um, but I do look back and see very clearly how much I learned during that time around taking up something new at an older age, around learning, and around the patience that you need when it comes to learning.
Well, that was something that I didn't know about you, so I'm just a touch intimidated now that I know, a martial art. So I wish
I
I
think
had known
quite
that.
safe.
I wish I had known that sooner. Oh well, thank you so much for sharing. So I suppose the things that I've gotten out of the chat today is one first thing you mentioned was creating your own luck. So I think everybody can agree that that is something that you don't want to rest on your laurels, and yeah, it's a great skill and trait to have. You mentioned also about keep your ego in check as well. I think that's something that really is important, especially in this industry as well. Like what I mentioned before, sticking to your values with that, turning down that promotion, that was quite courageous as well. And also, just there as well as being patient. So, learning takes time, which is a great point. I think everybody could really take out of with our conversation today. I had one other question that I was going to potentially throw at you as well. Just a little random one at the end that potentially might not have prepared for. But what did young Renae want to do when she was growing up, either through primary school or through high school? Did you have a dream, a career, an industry? I mean, not everybody, grows up and wants to delve into the art of superannuation and retirement. So, is there anything that you aspired to, or you potentially have already ticked off that young little Renae wished that she would do when she grew up?
Yes, thank you for the question without notice. Um, so growing up, I did a lot of dancing, and my mum and my aunties would make my costumes, which were quite elaborate back in those days and all hand sewn. And so I actually, first of all, wanted to be a fashion designer. So no, I didn't wake up dreaming about working in retirement and financial advice. I dreamt about working in fashion. And when the time came to apply to design school, I couldn't draw. I didn't know how to sew, but I decided to give it a crack anyway. And I put in a portfolio that I now look back on and think, what was I thinking? And I applied and I didn't get in. What a surprise. But they came back to me and said that I wasn't successful. And, I had pitched it like, well, if I already knew how to draw and how to sew, why would I need to go there to learn? But I wasn't successful. But then months later, I think someone else dropped out and they needed me to make up the numbers. So I got in. And I spent the first year working really hard and learning, and ended up getting good enough grades to then get into the best design school in New Zealand to finish my second year, which I did. And then I went on to realize that only about 2% of students in fashion actually make it, and that was not me. So, but I will never, I won't die wondering if I was ever good enough to be a fashion designer, not financial advisor. And yeah, I didn't make it, but that's what I wanted to be. And given we're on the subject of questions without notice, how about I get to ask one as well?
Yeah, you're more than welcome to ask one. Ask away.
So, you would have seen on my LinkedIn my passion for women and being able to find their voice and speak up. You have a gorgeous young daughter, and I'm keen to hear, as a father, what is one thing that you are going to encourage her, or a way that you will encourage her to have a voice and speak up for herself?
Yeah, that is a great question, a deep question. So I'm very much a new father. So she's about to turn 9 months, and I've got a very strong valued wife as well. That the way that she holds herself is where I would like my daughter to go to or aspire to as well. So I'm going to be putting in as much work as I can to um, develop and support a strong and successful daughter. But the way I look at how my wife is bringing up my daughter as well, I think we've got such a great team. The industry that I'm in, we have got some really strong, supportive, friendly, and really inspiring women as well. Our ex CEO was a really strong woman at the company that I work for, and it was very easy to look up to her and others in the industry that I have spoken to, and like what you said right at the start of our conversation, if you do reach out to leaders or people that you're looking up to, they do give you the time of day. They have been in the same situation, the same spot as you, whether they are just changing careers or just learning new skills or learning a new role or industry or company or whatever it is. Um, it's been very supportive so far in here. So for my daughter, yeah, I can't think of anything better than to develop a strong sense of values and for her to speak up about what she actually kind of wants to do and believe in. So yeah, no, I'm looking forward to seeing the little lady or the woman, the woman that she does grow up and become. So yes,
So am I. Looking
yeah.
forward to it too.
Thank you. Oh, it was wonderful to speak to you, Renae. Thank you very much for giving me a slot of your time today. I hope everyone else that's tuned in so far has gotten a bit out of it. I just, yeah, for me, I just want to, stand on the shoulders of leaders and basically just see what makes them tick. If there's any tidbits of information that, selfishly, I'm doing this for me, but I thought to myself, why not share this? And if anybody can get anything out of what I am asking and what leaders are sharing, I think it's just going to be fantastic. So have a great rest of the day. Thank you again for sharing your story with us.
No problem. Hope it helps.
Thank you. Bye.